Meet the author. Pam Munoz Ryan grew up in California. When she was in elementary school, her family moved across town. She didn't know anyone at first, so she spent a lot of time riding her bike to and from the local library. When she's not writing, Pam likes to travel and go for walks on the beach. She also enjoys raising pets. She's had many different pets over the years: ducks, a lizard, parrots, turtles, and more. Currently, she has one dog named Wally. Pam can also read and speak Spanish. The Dreamer. Rain.
On a continent of many songs, in a country shaped like the arm of a tall guitarrista, the rain drummed down on the town of Temuco. Neftali Reyes sat in his bed, propped up by pillows, and stared at the schoolwork in front of him. His teacher called it simple addition, but it was never simple for him. How he wished the numbers would disappear. He squeezed his eyes closed and then opened them. The 2s and 3s lifted from the page and waved for the others to join them. The 5s and 7s sprang upward, and finally, after much prodding, the 4s, 1s, and 6s came along. But the 9s and 0s would not budge, so the others left them. They held hands in a long procession of tiny figures, flew across the room, and escaped through the window crack. Neftali closed the book and smiled. He certainly could not be expected to finish his homework with only the lazy 0s and 9s lolling on the page. He slowly stepped out of bed and to the window, leaning his forehead against the pane and gazing into the backyard. He knew that he should rest in order to recuperate from his illness. He knew that when he wasn't resting, he should catch up on his studies. But there were so many distractions. Outside, the winter world was gray and sodden. The earth turned to mud, and a small stream flowed through a hole in the ramshackle fence. At the moment, no one lived next door. Still, Neftali always imagined a friend on the other side, waiting for him. Someone who might enjoy watching flotsam drift downriver, who collected twisted sticks, liked to read, and was not good at mathematics either. He heard footsteps. Was it father? He had been away, working on the railroad for a week, and was due home today. Neftali's heart pounded, and his round brown eyes grew large with panic. The footsteps came closer. Clump, 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 clump. Neftali reached up and smoothed his thick black hair. Was it out of place? He held up his hands and looked at his thin fingers. Were they clean enough? The idea of having to confront father made his arms tingle and his skin feel as if it were shrinking. He took a deep breath and held it. The footsteps passed his room and continued down the hall. Neftali exhaled. It must have been Mamadre, his stepmother, in her wooden-heeled shoes. He listened until he was sure that no one was near. Then he turned to the window again. Raindrops strummed across the zinc roof. Water mysteriously trilled above him, worming its way indoors. Weepy puddles dripped from the ceiling, filling the pots that had been poised to catch them. Plip, plip, plop. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Ulp, 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 ulp. Plip, 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 plop. Tin, 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 tin. Plop, plip, plip. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Ulp, 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 ulp. Tin, 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 tin. Plip, 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 plop. As Neftali listened to the piano of wet notes, he looked up at the Andes Mountains hovering like a white-robed choir. He looked out at the river Cautin, pattering through the forest. He closed his eyes and wondered what lay beyond, past the places of Labranza, Boroa, and Ranquilco, where the sea plucked at the rugged land. The window opened. A carpet of rain swept in and carried Neftali to the distant ocean he had only seen in books. There he was the captain of a ship, its prow slicing through the blue. Salt water sprayed his cheeks. His clothes fluttered against his body. He gripped the mast, looking back on his country, Chile. The screech of a conductor's whistle snapped Neftali to attention. He jerked around. Father's body filled the doorway. Neftali shuddered.
Stop that incessant daydreaming.
The white tip of Father's yellow beard quivered as he clenched and unclenched his narrow jaw.
And why are you out of bed?
Neftali averted his eyes.
Do you want to be a skinny weakling forever and amount to nothing?
No, Father, stammered Neftali.
Your mother was the same, scribbling on bits of paper, her mind always in another world.
Neftali rubbed his temples. He had never known his mother. She had died 2 months after he was born. Was Father right? Could daydreaming make you weak? Had it made his mother so weak that she had died? Mamadre hurried into the room. Father pointed at her.
You need to watch him more closely. He must stay in bed, or he will never get stronger.
As he bounded from the doorway, the floor shook. Mamadre took Neftali's hand, gently helped him into bed, and tucked the blankets around him. Your mother did not die from her imagination, she whispered. It was a fever. And look at me. I am small, and many say much too thin. I may not appear big and strong on the outside, but I am perfectly capable on the inside. Just like you. She stroked his head. I know it is hard to spend so many days in bed. I feel fine. said Neftali, reaching up to touch her black hair, which was pulled into a tight bun at the back of her neck. Just one more day, said Mamadre. I will read to you to help pass the time. Within the lull of Mamadre's soothing voice, Neftali lost himself in the legends of swashbucklers and giants. There his painful shyness stayed in the back of his mind. There he could not be called shinbone because of his thin and sickly body, or chosen last for a street game by the neighborhood boys. Between the pages, he forgot that he stuttered when he spoke. He saw himself healthy and strong like his older brother Rodolfo, cheerful like his little sister Laurita, and confident and intelligent like his uncle Orlando, who owned the local newspaper. While the pages turned, he even dared to imagine himself with a friend. After Mamadre finished reading and slipped away, Neftali studied the cracks in the ceiling. They looked like roads on a map, and he wondered to which country they belonged. He sighed. It had not mattered one bit what Father had said about daydreaming. Neftali could not stop. Every curious detail of his life taunted him. His mind wandered. To the monster storm raging outside, which startled the roof. To the distant rumble of the dragon volcano, Mount Yaima, which made the floors hiccup. To the makeshift walls of his timid house, trembling and cowering from the roar of passing trains. To the haphazard design of the room with incomplete stairs, which might have led to a castle on another floor, but had long been deserted in the middle of construction. The next day, Mamadre was far more watchful, and Neftali could not escape from his bed. Instead, he begged Laurita to be his ambassador at the window. Tell me all that you can see, please, porfa? Laurita nodded. She was only 4, and too short to see out. She pushed a chair to the window and climbed onto the seat. Then she leaned forward. Her round black eyes, heavy lashes, and sleek hair made her look like a little bird perched at the sill. I see rain, bumpy sky, wet leaves, one boot missing the other, muddy puddles, un perro callejero. Tell me about the stray dog, said Neftali. What color is it? It is so wet, I cannot say. Maybe brown, maybe black, said Laurita. Tell me about the boot that is missing the other. It has no shoestrings. It looks lonely. Tomorrow, when I am allowed up, I will rescue it and add it to my collections. But you already have so many rocks and sticks and nests. And the boot will be so dirty, said Laurita. And you do not know where it has been, or who has worn it. That is true, said Neftali. But I will clean it. Maybe it belonged to a stonemason, and by owning it, I will receive his strength. Or maybe it belonged to a baker, and once I run my hands over the leather, I will know how to make bread. Lorita giggled. You are silly, Neftali. Just then, Mamadre appeared in the doorway. Lorita, Valeria is here to play with you. And, Neftali, you need a nap, or you will not be able to go back to school tomorrow. She came into the room, kissed his forehead, and pulled the blanket up to his chin. You look fine on the outside, my son. How do you feel on the inside? Not tired. Please, Mamadre, may I read for a while? That is what I deserve for teaching you before you even started school. Mamadre nodded and smiled as she left the room. One story. Neftali grabbed a book from the bedside table. Even though he did not know all of the words, he read the ones he knew. He loved the rhythm of certain words, and when he came to one of his favorites, he read it over and over again. Locomotive, locomotive, locomotive. In his mind, it did not get stuck. He heard the word as if he had said it out loud perfectly.
Discuss. 1. Compare and contrast the dialogue and descriptions of Neftali and his father. How are they different from each other? 2. How would the story be different if the narrator focused on a character other than Neftali?